Transactions are a vital part of any database application. And as a developer, you simply have to understand these things and know how to code them. And you will normally code these inside your stored procedures, but we'll get to stored procedures later in a different video. But for now, I want to go through a real simple example and talk about transactions a little bit, help you get your head wrapped around these and understand then in an example and some code examples how you can actually utilize transactions. First of all, let's start with a real good definition. A transaction is simply a single unit of work. Now, in a lot of simple examples in classrooms and things, it's kind of neat. We go in and we update a database. So, we change something in a table. That's kind of cool. But in a normalized database, think about this. To update a complete record for a order or for a particular customer might involve updating 6 or 7 different tables because we've normalized those tables. So what we want to do is lump all 6 of those updates into a single unit of work. And the bottom line is, if all the modifications are successful, then the transaction is committed, meaning that all those changes got written into the transaction log and we're going to write it into the database. Everything's cool, everybody gets it. However, if any one of those 6 adjustments to the data has an error, then we don't want any of the modifications to go through. Because if 5 of them go through and 1 don't, we've now got a problem in our data. So it's an all or none type situation. So what I want to show you now is how these transactions work and how you code them, and then you can pile this information on or kind of link it together with what we talk about in stored procedures a little bit later in a different video, and you'll see kind of some cool things that you can do. So what I want to do is jump out to the Management Studio. Here we are, and the first thing I want to show you is I have done a select. I got into the AdventureWorks LT 2008 database, and I just did a select from the Sales LT customer table right here. And when I run that select statement, you can see it brings me back all the rows from that particular table. Now what I want to do is write an update statement, and I want to set the first name of anywhere it's Lucy. I want to set it equal to Bob, where the first name is now Lucy, and you can see I have one right here. So if I run my update command, it will change that. But what I can do is I can use a transaction, and in this example, it's going to look like a poor man's undo. Because if you'll think about what's going to happen here, if I click execute right here, it will run that, and it'll change Lucy to Bob, and I cannot undo it except to go manually change it back or restore from a backup. I can put this into an explicit transaction. We'll talk about that in a separate video. But what I do is type begin tran, or I can spell transaction out, and I'll just call it TR1. I'll give it a name, TR1, and then I'll execute the command. So I'll highlight both of those. And what I'm doing here is I'm opening a transaction called TR1, then I'm executing this. And so I execute it, and the first thing I notice, 2 rows were affected. I was just trying to change the one that I saw where Bob was equal to Lucy, but obviously somewhere else in the database we had another one. So I'll do a select again, and notice right here this Lucy got changed to Bob, and apparently there was another one. Now how do I find it in 842 rows and correct it? It's going to be tough, isn't it? So what I can do now, watch this, is come back down here and say roll back TR1. It's case sensitive on the tran name. And it says commands completed successfully. Well, what happened? Well, let's go run our select statement again, and you're going to notice that Lucy is back. It undid those changes. So when I said begin tran and ran my command, it wrote it into the transaction log, but it also put that begin transaction note on it. And when I rolled back the transaction, it basically said, you know what, this guy don't want to go through with this, so just erase it out of the transaction log and treat it like it never happened. And now I can go back and make my change. So what I want to do is where first name equals to Lucy and last name equals, notice, Harrington right here. And now I will grab my begin tran TR1 and I'll execute it. And now I'm still getting 2 rows. That's kind of interesting. So maybe she's in there twice. That's something I would have to go investigate. But for now, I'm going to say, you know what? I knew about that all along. I'm so smart. I know so much about my data that's okay, and I want to commit that. And so now I just execute a commit tran, and the data has been changed. And if I go back and look at it now, Lucy is now Bob, and I cannot undo that. Now, here's what you'd really do in real life. You would run the command, and then right here, you would check for errors. And if any error happens, you're going to roll back that transaction. Then, if no error happened, then you would commit the transaction. That's the general syntax. And this is not a T-SQL course. We won't get into all the try-catch and all that stuff. But just to understand how we can use transactions. And notice up here, I could have put 15 update statements down through here in my begin tran. And then if any one of those 15 statements had an error, then the rollback would have happened, and the 13 changes that did get made would be rolled back, and I'm okay. I haven't changed my database. So that's just a real quick overview of how these transactions work and how you can use them.